A rugged tow truck driver from a small Utah town built one of the most unexpectedly popular YouTube channels on the internet, with nothing but an iPhone and a beat-up Jeep. But at the peak of everything he'd worked for, the law came knocking. He was staring down a second-degree felony charge, up to 15 years in prison, and a single decision that would either preserve everything he'd built or bury it forever. This is the full story of the moment Matt Wetzel bet it all, and what happened next changed Matt's off-road recovery in ways nobody saw coming. Matt Wetzel didn't grow up dreaming about YouTube fame. He grew up in Washington County, southern Utah, one of 8 kids, the only boy surrounded by 7 sisters. It was a modest upbringing on a small family farm, and from an early age, Matt had a knack for fixing things and figuring out problems that stumped everyone else around him. He spent over a decade in the roofing industry, 10 years working for someone else, learning the trade from the ground up, then 2 more co-founding Skyline Roofing alongside Adam Stout. The company was successful. It's still operating in Hurricane to this day, but Matt's heart wasn't in it. Roofing paid the bills, but it wasn't where he was supposed to be, and somewhere along the way he knew it. So he walked away. In 2009, he bought the assets of a struggling local towing operation and launched Red Ryder Towing out of a shop in Hurricane, Utah. He'd never towed professionally before, but between years of farming, hauling heavy loads, and an instinct for problem solving, he stepped into the industry, in his own words, going full speed. It didn't take long before he spotted an opportunity bigger than Red Ryder alone. In 2013, he acquired Winder Towing, a brand with roots stretching back to 1981, founded by Harlan Winder and built on a reputation for integrity and reliability. Matt wasn't just buying a business. He was buying decades of trust in the community. 10 years of conventional towing followed. No cameras, no audience. Just Matt, his crew, and the relentless desert terrain of southern Utah. But that was all about to change. By 2009, the calls were already coming in. Tourists who'd pushed rental cars into terrain they had no business being on, campers swallowed by sand near Zion National Park, off-roaders who'd bitten off more than they could chew on trails that had no mercy. The problem was Matt's equipment wasn't built for any of it. Standard tow trucks couldn't handle the terrain, and every job felt like a battle against the wrong tools. His first instinct was to modify his existing rigs. He quickly realized that was the wrong move. The bones weren't right. The weight was wrong. No amount of modification was going to turn a conventional tow truck into what he actually needed out there. So Matt scrapped the idea entirely and started from scratch. He built what would become the most recognizable vehicle in the Moore universe, a 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ, stripped down, heavily modified, and painted bright yellow. A skeptical customer took one look at it seconds before Matt yanked his Class C motorhome clean out of the sand and mockingly called it the Banana. The name stuck permanently. Paired with kinetic energy ropes, a tool Matt became almost evangelical about, the Banana could get jobs done in minutes that used to take hours. Recovery times collapsed, customer bills dropped, and word started spreading fast. Later came the Morvair, a highly modified Corvair station wagon converted into a 4-wheel drive recovery machine that raised eyebrows everywhere it showed up. Matt called this process fabricating without a fully developed plan, just instinct and problem-solving in real time. It was unconventional, it was a little chaotic, and it worked better than anyone expected. But the rigs alone weren't what built Moore. What came next was the real gamble. Matt had already tried YouTube once. His brother-in-law helped him set up a channel somewhere between 2016 and 2017. They got 2 videos up, and it went absolutely nowhere. Most people would have taken that as a sign and moved on. Matt took it as a problem to solve. He became obsessed. Between running Winder Towing and managing recoveries, he hyper-focused on studying the platform, watching creators who taught others how YouTube actually worked, dissecting what separated the channels, pulling millions of views from the ones gathering dust. He figured out quickly that almost everything a new creator's instincts told them to do was wrong. The begging for subscribers, the overly polished intros, the assumption that expensive equipment was the difference maker, none of it held up. What changed everything was discovering LumaFusion, a mobile editing app he could run entirely from his iPhone. The moment he realized he could film, edit, and publish without ever touching a desktop computer, the last barrier was gone. On March 28, 2019, Matt uploaded his first video. No studio, no camera crew, no budget. Just an iPhone, a recovery job, and a story worth telling. But something unexpected happened almost immediately. As the channel started gaining traction, Matt began paying close attention to who was actually watching. It wasn't off-road enthusiasts, it wasn't gearheads or towing professionals, it was grandparents, families, people who had never touched a recovery strap in their lives and had zero plans to. They weren't there for the trucks, they were there for Matt, the personality, the chaos, the story. That realization quietly changed everything about how he approached the camera, and it was about to send the channel into a completely different stratosphere. What happened next was the kind of growth that most YouTube creators spend entire careers chasing and never find. In roughly 3.5 years, Matt's off-road recovery went from 0 to nearly 1.5 million subscribers. Across all platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the combined viewership swelled to around 6 million people. For a self-taught technology-impaired tow truck driver from a small Utah town who'd started with an iPhone and no plan, those numbers were almost impossible to comprehend. But the most striking part wasn't the size of the audience. It was who that audience was. Matt had gone on record saying that only about 2% of his viewers were actual off-road enthusiasts. The other 98% had stumbled onto the channel for reasons that had nothing to do with recovery rigs or kinetic ropes. They stayed because of the people. The crew that assembled around Matt became as much a draw as the recoveries themselves. Jamie holding everything together behind the scenes, Rudy bringing fabrication skills and raw trail instinct, Ed with his gold claim and his decades of stories, Tom, Hefe, Lizzie, Caitlin, Tucker, Randy, each one adding a layer that kept viewers coming back episode after episode. The channel had also quietly become something else entirely, a community. Matt's audience had collectively raised over $600,000 in charitable donations for local organizations across southern Utah. That wasn't a PR move. It grew organically out of the loyalty the channel had built, one recovery video at a time. By any measure, MOR had become something real and rare on the internet, which made what was quietly building behind the scenes all the more dangerous. While the channel was exploding in popularity, something else was happening underneath the surface that almost nobody knew about. Between January 2019 and August 2020, the exact window when MOR was finding its footing and building its audience, claims were being filed to AAA through Winder Towing that didn't match the services on paper, and investigators were paying attention. 3 specific incidents ended up at the center of the case. The first involved 3 vehicles allegedly towed to Salt Lake City, for which AAA paid out a combined $2,800. The customer later confirmed to investigators that the vehicles were never actually towed. Instead, Matt's company had delivered construction materials, and the claims were filed to cover that cost rather than a legitimate tow. The second incident involved a Polaris RZR recovered from Sand Hollow State Park, a job that was actually filmed and posted to the YouTube channel. The problem was that AAA doesn't cover off-road vehicle recoveries. To get around that, the owner used a friend's AAA membership and filed the claim as a truck tow instead. The third involved a customer who didn't have a AAA membership at all. According to charging documents, Matt told him to sign up, wait a few days, and then submit a claim. When investigators eventually got Matt on the phone, he didn't dodge it. He acknowledged what had happened but pushed back on the framing. His position was that every single job had a real service attached to it, that the work was always done. In his own words, the claims were wrong on the front end but fair on the back. It was an explanation. Whether it was enough was now somebody else's decision to make. In late October 2021, the Utah Insurance Fraud Division made its move. After a lengthy investigation triggered by a formal complaint, Matthew David Wetzel was hit with 1 count of false or fraudulent insurance claim, a second-degree felony, the kind of charge that doesn't just threaten a business, it threatens a life. Second-degree felony insurance fraud in Utah carries a potential sentence of up to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. For a man who had spent years building something from nothing, who had a wife, 4 sons, a crew that depended on him, and over 1 million subscribers watching his every move, the timing couldn't have been worse. The story broke publicly in December 2021 and spread fast. Major outlets picked it up. The comment sections lit up. Fans who had never questioned Matt suddenly found themselves reading court documents. Critics who had been waiting for a crack in the channel's wholesome reputation leaned in hard. For a brief moment, it genuinely looked like the thing Matt had spent years building could be dismantled by a gavel. What happened on the channel during this period was telling. Matt didn't go quiet. He didn't take down videos, abandon his posting schedule, or disappear into damage control mode. The channel kept running exactly as it always had. Recoveries, fabrication, crew dynamics, all of it. Whether that was confidence, stubbornness, or simply the only move available to him, it sent a clear message to his audience that he wasn't going anywhere. But behind the scenes, a decision was being weighed that would define everything that came next. On February 22, 2022, Matt Wetzel walked into court and made the call. He pleaded no contest to a Class A misdemeanor, a significant reduction from the second-degree felony charge that had been hanging over him for months. It wasn't an admission of guilt in the traditional sense. His attorney, Jason Velez, was clear about that, stating publicly that the plea represented a dispute over process rather than substance, that the argument was never about whether the work was done, but about how the claims were filed. Still, the conviction stood, and Matt had chosen to accept it rather than fight. The sentence handed down by 5th District Judge Jeffrey Wilcox reflected the reduced charge, 18 months of probation, a payment of $15,328 back to AAA, a separate fine of $1,745 to Utah's Insurance Fraud Division, over $17,000 in total financial consequences, significant but a world away from the 15-year prison sentence the original felony had carried. Matt's legal team framed it as a chance to move forward. My client felt this resolution provided an opportunity to move forward and focus on serving others, Velez said. The Utah Attorney General's office was equally measured in its response, with spokesman Richard Piott confirming that prosecutors were satisfied with the outcome given that Matt had admitted guilt and agreed to full restitution. What Matt said publicly was simpler than any legal statement. He addressed it openly, without theatrics, without manufactured emotion. He acknowledged what happened, promised to comply fully with the terms, and made clear he had no intention of going anywhere. No lengthy apology video, no dramatic breakdown, just accountability delivered in the same straightforward tone his audience had come to expect from him. The question now was whether that would be enough to save everything he'd built. It was enough, more than enough as it turned out. The subscriber count didn't drop after the plea, it grew. The audience that had built itself around Matt's authenticity responded to the way he handled the situation the same way they'd responded to everything else. They stayed. The transparency, the lack of drama, the refusal to perform remorse for the camera, it all landed exactly the way his channel had always landed. Post-2022, Matt refocused entirely on what had made MREA worth watching in the first place: genuine recoveries, real stories, the crew, the builds, the chaos of southern Utah's unforgiving terrain. The channel climbed past 1.9 million subscribers and kept going. The decision that looked like it could end Matt's off-road recovery didn't end anything. If anything, it quietly proved something his audience already believed, that the man they'd been watching was exactly who he said he was.